My children forgot me until they needed something. If you have a mother or someone who ever loved you enough to sacrifice sleep for you, call them today. A simple, "I'm thinking of you," can heal a wound you didn't know they carried. While I share my story, tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to hear from you. Now let me tell you what happened the day my children suddenly remembered I existed. It was a quiet morning. The kind of morning where the sun entered my window gently, like it was afraid to disturb me. I was in the backyard talking to my plants. They have been better companions than people these days. I heard the gate creak, that gate that only opens for the wind or for strangers. But it wasn't the wind. It was my daughter, Sarah. Ah, Sarah, the one with eyes sharp enough to cut through lies, yet blind to her mother's tears. Behind her was my son, Mike, carrying a forced smile like a heavy suitcase. They stood there, shifting, unsure, as if my home had become unfamiliar territory. I wiped my hands on my wrapper and said softly, "Ah, you people remembered your mother today." Sarah laughed, a thin, shaky laugh. "Mama Rose, don't talk like that." But I could see it in her eyes. She hadn't come because she missed me. Mike cleared his throat. "Mama, we came to talk. It's important." I looked at them. Two adults I carried in my womb, standing in my yard like debt collectors. "Come inside," I said. As they sat, their bodies were stiff. Their eyes wandered around the room, studying the walls like they were looking for cracks. Not cracks in the paint, but cracks in me. "Mama," Sarah began, "we've been thinking maybe it's time you moved in with one of us." Her voice was sweet, too sweet, the kind of sweetness sugar turns into when it starts hiding something bitter. I looked at my son. He couldn't meet my eyes. "And why," I asked, slowly, "do you suddenly want your old mother living with you?" Silence. A silence so loud, it felt like it was screaming the truth. Finally, Mike spoke. "Mama, you're getting older. This house, it's too big for you alone. We can help you. Take care of it." Ah, there it was. The real reason they remembered me. Not my health, not my loneliness, not my birthday they forgot, not the nights I cried because I thought I had failed as a mother. No, they remembered me because of this house, the only thing I had left, the only thing my husband and I built with sweat, saving coin by coin, choosing cement over comfort, bricks over new clothes, a roof over our children's future. A house they once ran around laughing in, a house they now wanted to run away with. "My children," I whispered, "if you wanted the house, you should have said so." Their faces changed, surprised, caught, ashamed, but still greedy enough to stay silent. I stood up slowly, my knees accusing me for rising too quickly. I walked to the window and touched the curtain my husband sewed with his clumsy hands. I remembered how he used to joke that the curtain was crooked, but perfect because it was ours. I turned back to my children and said, "You forgot me for years. Not a visit, not a call, not even during that sickness I hid from you." I paused. My voice shook, but not from fear. "And now you want the only thing keeping me company?" They shifted uncomfortably. "Mama, it's not like that," Sarah tried, but I raised my hand. "No, I understand." I smiled sadly. "You need something. That is why you are here." And the truth hit them the way sunrise hits darkness, slowly, but impossible to escape. That night, after they left, I sat alone in my house, the house they wanted to steal with sweet words. I held my husband's old shawl and whispered to the empty room, "Our children have forgotten us." But the wind outside answered gently, "They will remember when it is too late." I didn't sleep. And I knew this was only the beginning. That silence in the room told me everything. Everything I had feared, everything I had suspected, everything a mother tries desperately to ignore just so her heart won't break. I watched them avoid my eyes, two grown adults.
Not for pressure. I will leave it when God Himself asks me to. I opened the door slightly. A breeze entered, brushing against my skin like comfort. "You may go now," Sarah gasped. "Mama, you're chasing us out?" "No," I replied softly. "I am showing you the way you showed me for years." Mike stood slowly, eyes red. "Mama, please, go," I whispered. They hesitated, but eventually they walked toward the door. The same door they used to run through with laughter. The same door they now walked out of with shame. As they reached the gate, I spoke again, barely loud enough for them to hear. "When you remember your mother again, make sure it is not because you want something." The gate closed behind them, and for the first time in many years, my house felt honest. It hurt. God knows it hurt. But honesty, even painful honesty, is better than being loved only for what you can give. I stood there for a long time, holding the house documents to my chest. "My children forgot me," I whispered into the quiet air, "until they needed something." I didn't know it then, but that day was only the beginning of secrets, the beginning of betrayal, the beginning of a storm none of us were ready for, but also the beginning of my rebirth. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the house, a house that suddenly felt bigger, too big. Every corner echoed with memories and warnings, the kind of warnings a mother feels in her bones long before the world confirms them. I kept seeing their faces, Sarah's trembling lips, Mike's lowered eyes. I replayed their words, rearranged them in my mind, tried to find any sincerity hidden between them. But no matter how I turned it, no matter how I twisted it, the truth remained the same. They came for the house, not for me. I turned on my side and pulled the thin blanket up to my chin. The night air was cool, but not cold enough to explain the shiver traveling through me. It wasn't fear, not exactly. It was the realization that something deeper had broken, something beyond mother and child, something that lived in the space between loyalty and betrayal. I closed my eyes, but sleep refused to come. Hours passed. The dark slowly softened into gray, then into faint morning light. Dawn crept into my room gently, touching my face like someone trying to apologize for waking me. I sat up, stretching my fingers slowly. My joints complained, but I ignored them. There were heavier things weighing on me. I went to the kitchen, boiled water, and made tea. I held the cup in both hands, letting the warmth settle into my palms. Steam rose into my face, and I closed my eyes, inhaling it as if it might fill the emptiness inside me. That was when I heard it. A soft knock on the door. Not hesitant, not aggressive. A familiar knock, one I had not heard in years. My heart paused. I placed the cup on the table, wiped my palms on my wrapper, and walked slowly to the door. My steps were careful, cautious, as if I was walking toward something fragile. When I opened the door, I saw a woman standing there. Kate, my neighbor of 20 years, the only person who had checked on me when the world forgot me. A woman with a soft voice and kind eyes, who had aged with grace and courage. She looked at me for a moment, as if reading the entire night on my face. "You didn't sleep," she said gently. I shook my head. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. She didn't need one. She knew my house like she knew her own. "Sit," she told me, pointing to the chair. I sat. She took the seat opposite me. "What happened?" I laughed lightly. It slipped out before I could hold it in. "My children came yesterday." She tilted her head slightly. And they didn't come for me," I whispered. She inhaled deeply, closing her eyes as if bracing herself. I knew something was wrong when I saw them leaving. The way they walked, it wasn't the walk of children leaving their mother's house. It was the walk of people leaving a failed plan. Her words hit me like truth always does. Calm, steady, but cutting. "I don't know what hurts more," I said. "The fact that they forgot me for so long, or the fact that when they finally remembered, it was for something I could give them." Kate reached across the table and took my hand gently. "Pain changes a mother, but betrayal rewrites her completely." I swallowed, nodding. Then she leaned a little closer. "And there's more coming." I frowned. "More?" She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I didn't want to tell you last night. I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe I misheard. But this morning, God is pushing me to speak." My heart tightened. "Speak," I said. She exhaled slowly. "Yesterday, while your children were here, I overheard something.
My fingers stiffened. What did you hear, Kate? She lowered her voice. They weren't alone. My breath caught. What do you mean? They came with someone else, a man. He parked outside the street so you wouldn't see the car. He waited the whole time. And when they came out, after that argument or whatever happened inside your house, they walked straight to him. A coldness crept into my chest. Who was he? I asked. I don't know, she said. But I heard one thing clearly. Sarah told him. She refused. We have to try the other way. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. The other way. Those words hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. My voice came out weak. The other way? Kate squeezed my hand. Yes. And the man told them he knew someone who could help make things faster. I felt the ground tilt beneath me. What does that mean? I whispered. Kate shook her head. I don't know. But their intentions, they're darker than you thought. The room suddenly felt...
My breath trembled in shallow waves. It felt like the entire house was holding its breath alongside me, listening to my heartbeat, waiting for my next move. Eventually, I forced myself to stand. My knees wobbled beneath me, reminding me of how much the years had worn on my body. But I stood anyway. Strength wasn't always in the bones. Sometimes it lived in places only fear could uncover. I walked slowly to the door and pressed my ear against it. Silence greeted me, but it didn't comfort me the way silence used to. Now, silence felt like something hiding, something waiting, something watching me back. My legs carried me to the small mirror hanging near the hallway. I stared at my reflection, my eyes swollen, my hair slightly scattered around my face, my cheeks pale from shock. I didn't look like a woman preparing for battle. I looked like someone who had already lost. But that wasn't the truth. I had not lost. I had not even begun fighting. I reached for the edge of the mirror to steady myself, and that was when I noticed it. A small scratch on the wooden frame, thin, almost invisible unless you stood close. My brows drew together. I hadn't noticed it before. I leaned closer, tracing my finger along the tiny mark. It wasn't a crack from age. It looked fresh, newly made, as if someone had brushed past it too quickly or pressed something against the wall. A quiet chill slid down my spine. Had someone entered my home yesterday before I woke, before the knock, before that man showed himself today? I stepped back from the mirror, looking around the hallway as if seeing it for the first time. I noticed another small detail. The rug near the corner was slightly crooked, barely, a tiny shift that an ordinary visitor wouldn't have caused, especially since no one had walked through that part of the house in days. My mind sharpened instantly. Was someone inside while I slept? I walked through the hallway slowly, my eyes drifting to every corner and shadow. The vase near the window looked moved a little to the side, though I couldn't be sure. One of the picture frames on the wall hung slightly uneven. My breath caught. These weren't dramatic changes. They were subtle, almost intentional. That was the part that frightened me. Not the movement itself, but the precision. I gripped the back of a nearby chair to steady myself, and as I did, another memory flashed through my mind. The note the man left on my phone, the confidence in his voice, the way he spoke as though he had mapped out my entire life. You made things difficult yesterday, but everything can still go smoothly if you cooperate. My throat tightened. Why was he so sure of himself? Why did he speak like someone who...
I didn't reply Kate's message. I didn't need to. My feet already knew where to go. Each step toward her house felt heavier than the last, like the ground itself was trying to warn me. The street looked normal, too normal. Children's voices in the distance, a dog barking somewhere. Life continuing as if my world hadn't cracked open overnight. Kate's door was already open. She was waiting. The moment she saw my face, she stood up. Her eyes widened, not in surprise, but in confirmation. You saw it too, she said quietly. I didn't ask what she meant. I just nodded and stepped inside. She closed the door behind me and turned the lock. Then the second lock. Then she pulled the curtain across the window. Only then did she speak again. They came back, she said. My heart skipped. Who? The man, she replied. And your children. The room tilted slightly. I sat down before my legs gave way. When? I asked. Early this morning, before sunrise. I was awake. I couldn't sleep after yesterday. She hesitated.
They thought no one was watching. A bitter smile touched my lips. They thought wrong. Kate sat opposite me, her hands folded tightly in her lap. They argued, she continued, not loudly, but with that kind of anger people use when they don't want witnesses. The man was angry, very angry. About me, I whispered. Yes. She leaned forward. Rose, he is not just helping them move things faster. He's not a lawyer. He's not an agent. My chest tightened. Then what is he? Kate swallowed. He buys problems. He turns people into solutions. The words settled slowly, like dust after a collapse. What kind of solution? I asked. The permanent kind. For a moment, I couldn't hear anything. Not the ticking clock, not my own breathing, just the echo of that word inside my skull. Permanent. Kate reached for my hand. I heard him say something that chilled me. He told them, if she doesn't sign willingly, there are other ways to make her unavailable. My fingers went numb. Unavailable. Not unwilling, not difficult. Unavailable. I laughed softly, the sound hollow and strange. So this is where motherhood leads, I said. From lullabies to liabilities. Kate squeezed my hand harder. Rose, listen to me. Your children are deeper than they realize, and so are you. I closed my eyes. Images flashed through my mind. Sarah as a little girl braiding my hair with clumsy fingers. Mike sleeping on my chest, his tiny fist curled into my wrapper. Moments I had protected with my life. And now? Now, I was something to remove. What else did you hear? I asked. Kate hesitated. They mentioned a document. My eyes snapped open. What document? Something they think you already signed, or something they plan to make look like you did. My breath hitched. The camera, the fingerprint, the shifted cabinet. They weren't just watching me. They were preparing evidence. I leaned back slowly, my mind suddenly clear in a terrifying way. They think I'm old, confused, alone. Kate nodded. And that makes you dangerous to them. Dangerous? I asked. Yes, she said firmly. Because people like that only fear one thing. Unpredictability. A silence stretched between us. Then I said the words that surprised even me. They're underestimating me. Kate studied my face carefully. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, I replied, that for the first time in years, they've made a mistake. She waited. I think they don't know, I continued. They think I'm afraid. They think I'll hide. I leaned forward. But I have something they don't. What? She asked. Time, I said softly. And truth. Kate's eyes narrowed. Rose. I won't confront them, I said. Not yet. Then what will you do? I smiled slowly, calmly, a smile that didn't belong to a helpless woman. I'll let them think their plan is working. Kate inhaled sharply. That's dangerous. So is being predictable. I stood up, adjusting my scarf. They want to watch me, I continued. Fine, I'll give them a performance. Kate rose too. Rose, listen to me. They think I'm breaking, I said. Then I'll break, slowly, publicly, convincingly. Her eyes widened. I'll call Sarah, I added. I'll sound tired, confused. I'll say I'm scared to live alone. Kate stared at me. You're baiting them. No, I corrected gently. I'm exposing them. I picked up my bag. People like that, I continued, always rush when they think victory is close. They get careless. And when they do? She asked. I met her eyes. That's when the truth comes out. She was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. Then you won't do this alone. I turned to her. I never asked you to risk yourself. She smiled sadly. You never had to. We stood there, two women the world had underestimated for different reasons. Before I left, Kate touched my arm. Rose, whatever happens next, promise me one thing. What? Don't forget who you are. I held her gaze. I won't. They already did. When I returned home, I didn't check the fence. I didn't search for cameras. I walked in slowly, deliberately, as if exhausted. I let the house see me hesitate. I sat down heavily. I sighed. I let my shoulders slump. If someone was watching, I wanted them satisfied. Then I picked up my phone. Sarah answered on the third ring. Mama? Her voice was cautious, alert. Sarah, I said weakly. I think you were right. Silence. About what, Mama? She asked carefully. About me being alone, I whispered. Her breath quickened. I could hear it. Mama, are you okay? I don't know, I said. I think I need help. A pause. Too long. Then, relief barely hidden. We can come talk, she said quickly. Today. Yes, I replied softly. Please. After the call ended, I placed the phone down gently. My hands were steady. I looked around my house. The walls, the curtains, the cabinet. They're coming, I whispered to the empty room. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid. Because this time, they wouldn't be meeting the mother who waited. They would be meeting the woman they never bothered to know. That afternoon, a car pulled up outside my gate. Not one, two. I watched from behind the curtain. Sarah stepped out first, then Mike, then him. The man Kate warned me about. He didn't look threatening. That was the most dangerous part. He smiled like someone who believed the world owed him cooperation. My phone buzzed.
Mama, we're outside. I took a breath and whispered to myself, let the game begin. If you're still listening, if this story feels uncomfortably close to home, stay with me, because what happened next will change everything you think you know about family, betrayal, and how far people will go for what they believe they deserve. And before you go any further, tell me in the comments, would you forgive your children or would you protect yourself at all costs? This is only the beginning.
I opened the door before they knocked, not because I was eager, but because I didn't want them to feel powerful. Sarah froze when she saw me. Mike did too. For a brief moment, something human flickered across their faces. Surprise, maybe even doubt. Then the man stepped forward, and whatever softness tried to rise in them vanished. He was taller than I expected, neatly dressed, calm. The kind of calm that doesn't come from peace, but from practice. "Good afternoon," he said smoothly. "Mrs. Rose." He knew my name. Of course he did. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. My voice sounded thin, exactly the way I wanted it to. They entered my house like people inspecting property they already believed belonged to them. The man glanced around once, just once, but it was enough. He wasn't looking for beauty. He was calculating value. We sat. Sarah stayed close to me, her hand touching my arm lightly, as if to perform concern. Mike sat across, rigid, avoiding my eyes. The man remained standing for a moment longer, surveying the room before choosing a chair for himself. He sat like someone settling in for a meeting, not a family conversation, a negotiation. "Mama," Sarah began gently, "we were worried after your call." I nodded slowly. "I don't feel like myself." The man watched me closely, too closely. "That happens," he said calmly, "at a certain age." I turned my eyes to him. "And you are?" He smiled. "A friend of the family." A lie told with confidence. "I don't remember birthing you," I replied softly. Sarah laughed nervously. "Mama, please, this is Mr. Hale. He's helping us think through some things." Hale inclined his head slightly. "Only trying to help." "Help who?" I asked. "All of you," he said. The silence that followed was thick. I let my hands tremble a little as I clasped them together. I let my breath hitch. "I'm tired," I said. "I don't sleep well anymore." Sarah leaned in immediately. "That's why we're here, Mama. We want to help you rest, be comfortable." Mike finally spoke. "You shouldn't be alone." I looked at him. Really looked. "You were alone too," I said quietly, "when you left home and forgot to call." His jaw tightened. Hale cleared his throat. "Mrs. Rose, no one is questioning your strength, but strength doesn't cancel reality." "And what reality is that?" I asked. "That time is not on your side." There it was. The first push. I sighed deeply and leaned back. "So what do you suggest?" Sarah and Mike exchanged a quick look. Hale answered. "A simple solution. You move in with one of your children. The house gets managed properly. Everyone wins." "And what about my wishes?" I asked. He smiled again. "We believe this is what you would want if you were thinking clearly." The words slid under my skin like ice. "If," I repeated. Sarah reached for my hand. "Mama, you've been confused lately." I looked at her slowly. "Confused about what?" She hesitated. "Small things. Dates, conversations." I nodded. "Is that what you told him?" She didn't answer. Hale leaned forward slightly. "We don't want this to become complicated. These situations are easier when handled early." "Early?" I echoed. "Before people start asking questions," he said. I lowered my eyes, pretending to shrink. "That sounds reasonable," I murmured. Relief washed over their faces too quickly. Hale smiled wider. "Good," he said. Then the next step would be to formalize things. He placed a folder on the table. Not my folder. A new one. Inside were documents. I didn't need to read them to know what they were. "Just a temporary arrangement," he continued smoothly. "A power of attorney, so decisions can be made on your behalf." On my behalf. I stared at the papers. I let my hands shake as I reached toward them. Inside, my heart was calm. This was it. The trap. "Can I think about it?" I asked softly. Hale smiled stiffened for just a second. "Of course," he said, "but not for too long. These things work best when handled promptly." Mike shifted uncomfortably. Sarah squeezed my hand.
Mama, we're only doing this because we love you. I looked up at her, eyes wet. Do you? Her face flickered. Yes, she said quickly. I nodded. Then you won't mind if I speak to someone. Hale's eyes sharpened. Someone? A doctor, I said. A lawyer. Just to explain things to me. The room changed. The air thickened. Hale leaned back slowly. That may not be necessary. But I insist, I whispered. Silence. Then Mike spoke. Mama, lawyers complicate things. Then maybe things are already complicated, I replied. Hale stood. I think you're overwhelmed, he said. We'll give you time. He gathered the folder. But understand this. Delays create risks. Risks for who? I asked. For everyone, he said calmly. They left shortly after. At the door, Sarah turned back. We'll come tomorrow. I smiled weakly. I'll be here. When the door closed, I locked it. Then I laughed. Not loudly, not joyfully, but with the sharp clarity of a woman who had just confirmed her worst fear. They weren't trying to help me. They were trying to erase me. I walked straight to the bedroom and pulled the metal box from under the bed. I removed the memory card from the hidden camera. Then I picked up my phone and called Kate. They showed their hand, I said. She exhaled sharply. How bad? They want me declared incapable. There was a pause. Then, Rose, listen to me carefully, she said. I didn't tell you everything. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? The man, she continued. Hale. I've seen him before. Where? At the courthouse, months ago, with another family. My breath caught. What happened to them? I asked. Kate's voice dropped. The mother signed everything. And she died 3 weeks later. Silence swallowed me whole. Natural causes? I whispered. They said so, Kate replied. But her children sold the house within a month. My knees weakened. Kate continued. Rose, this isn't just about your house. This is a pattern. I closed my eyes. A pattern. That's what this was. And I was the next shape they wanted to complete. Then we exposed them, I said. Yes, Kate replied. But carefully. I looked at the camera card in my hand. They've been watching me, I said. Which means they've recorded themselves too. Kate inhaled sharply. Rose, that might be enough. Not yet, I said. People don't believe women like me until it's almost too late. I paused. So we'll let it get close. The line was quiet. Then Kate spoke. Are you sure? I opened the metal box and placed the card inside. I've survived worse, I said. They just don't know it yet. That night, I slept. Not deeply, but deliberately. Because tomorrow, I would do something that would shock them. Something that would make them believe they had already won. And when people think they've won, they stop hiding. If you're still listening, stay with me. Because in the next part, you'll hear the moment my children crossed a line they could never walk back from. And before you continue, ask yourself, how far would someone go if they believed you were no longer fully human, but just an obstacle? The next few minutes is where everything explodes. I woke up the next morning with a strange calm in my chest. Not peace, not relief. Acceptance. The kind that comes when your mind finally stops asking why and starts asking how. I moved slowly through the house, careful not to disturb the rhythm I knew so well. I made tea. I watered my plants. I opened the windows just enough to let the house breathe. If someone was watching, I wanted them to see routine. Normalcy. A woman settling into weakness. At exactly 10 minutes past 9, my phone rang. Mike. I waited 3 rings before answering. Mama, he said. His voice sounded strained. How are you feeling? I forgot where I put my slippers this morning, I replied softly. I cried. Silence. I'm coming over, he said quickly. Sarah too. No, I whispered. Not both of you. Another pause. Just you, I added. Please, I feel overwhelmed. He exhaled, relieved. Okay, I'll be there soon. When the call ended, I sat down slowly and closed my eyes. They were adjusting the plan. Splitting roles, reducing witnesses. I picked up my phone and sent one message. To Kate. He's coming alone. Her reply came almost instantly. Good, don't change anything. I'm watching. Watching. That word felt different now. This time it wasn't a threat. Mike arrived 20 minutes later. No Hale, no Sarah. Just my son. He knocked twice. I didn't answer right away. When I finally opened the door, he frowned. Mama, are you okay? I don't feel steady, I said, leaning slightly on the doorframe. He stepped inside immediately, closing the door behind him. That was mistake number 1. He didn't check the windows, didn't look around. He thought this was already handled. "Mama, you scared us yesterday," he said, trying to sound gently, talking about confusion. "I am confused," I replied. "I don't know who to trust anymore." He swallowed. "I trust you," I added. His shoulders relaxed. That was mistake number 2. We sat. "Mike said I talked to Sarah last night. We're worried about you." I nodded. "She worries when she wants something." His jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "Then tell me why she didn't come today," I asked. He hesitated. "She thought it would be easier if I talked to you alone." "Easier?" "Yes," I said softly. "Easier to convince me." He looked away. I reached for his hand. He flinched before he realized he was doing it. That hurt more than anything else. "Mama," he said, his voice lowering. "We don't have much time." "There it is." He stiffened. "Hale says these things can become messy if delayed." "Hale," I repeated. "You trust him more than me now." "He knows how these things work," he said quickly. "Legal systems, transitions." "And mothers?" I asked. "Does he know how they work?" Mike stood abruptly. "Mama, please, this isn't emotional." I looked up at him. "That's where you're wrong," I said calmly.
It's nothing but emotional. He began pacing. Hale says if we wait too long, people might start asking questions. Doctors, banks. "So you want me declared incapable?" I said plainly. He stopped. Silence. His silence answered me. "That's what this is?" I continued. "You want papers that say I no longer belong to myself." "Mama." "You want my voice replaced by yours," I said. "My decisions replaced by your convenience." "That's not true," he snapped. I leaned forward. "Then why didn't you tell me the truth from the beginning?" His face cracked, just slightly. "Hale said it was better this way," he muttered. There it was again. Hale. The man who wasn't here, yet sat between us like a third child. "I raised you to think," I said, "not to outsource your conscience." Mike ran a hand through his hair. "You don't understand the pressure." "Tell me," I said. "What pressure?" He looked at the door, then at the window. Then he said it. "Hale already advanced us money." The room went cold. "How much?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer. "How much, Mike?" "Enough. Enough to trap him. Enough to make backing out impossible." "And what did he want in return?" I asked. Mike's voice shook. "Security. Security." That word again. "And if I don't sign?" I asked. Mike looked at me, and for the first time in my life, he didn't look like my son. He looked like a man cornered. "Hale says, accidents happen," he whispered. I didn't move, didn't blink, just listened as my heart broke in a clean, precise line. "You let a stranger threaten your mother," I said. He dropped into the chair, burying his face in his hands. "I didn't think it would go this far," he said. "He said it was just paperwork." I stood slowly. "That's how evil survives," I said. "It dresses itself as administration." He looked up, eyes red. "Mama, what do we do?" "We." The word came too late. I walked to the cabinet and pulled out the metal box. I placed it gently on the table between us. "What's that?" he asked. "Proof," I said. I opened it. I showed him the camera, the memory card. His face drained of color. "He recorded you too," I said calmly. "Your conversations, your visits." Mike's breath came fast. "You're lying." "I'm prepared," I corrected. He stood suddenly. "Hale can't see this." "Oh," I said softly.
This is where the trap closes. They arrived earlier than expected. That was how I knew Hale was nervous. Power never rushes unless it senses resistance. I was seated at the dining table when the knock came. Soft, confident, rehearsed. The kind of knock that assumes permission before it's granted. I didn't answer immediately. I counted my breaths. 1, 2, 3. Then I stood, steadying myself, and opened the door. Hale smiled first. Sarah stood beside him, eyes bright with something that wasn't relief. Mike lingered a step behind them, his face drawn, hollowed out by a night of regret he couldn't undo. "Good morning, Mrs. Rose," Hale said warmly. "I hope we're not too early." "No," I replied softly. "I've been awake for hours." "True. Fear has a way of sharpening time." They stepped inside. Hale carried a leather briefcase this time. He placed it on the table like an offering, or a verdict.
He didn't sit until I did. A small courtesy, a calculated one. Sarah moved quickly to my side. She kissed my cheek. "You look tired, Mama," she said. "I am," I replied, but clear. Her smile faltered for half a second. Hale opened the briefcase. Papers slid out neatly, already marked with colored tabs. He pushed them toward me, then placed a pen carefully on top, aligning it with the margin. "We made a few adjustments," he said calmly. "Nothing major, just to streamline the process." Streamline. Such a clean word for erasure. Mike sat down heavily, his eyes fixed on the table. He hadn't looked at me once since entering. Sarah leaned in. "Mama, this will make things easier, for all of us." I picked up the pen. My hand trembled just enough. Hale noticed immediately. His gaze sharpened, then softened. "That's normal," he said gently. "These moments can be emotional." "Yes," I whispered. "They can." I flipped the first page slowly, read nothing, let the silence stretch. Sarah shifted. Hale didn't. He was watching my breathing, my blinking, the way my fingers held the pen. He was assessing compliance. "Before I sign," I said quietly, "I want to say something." Hale smiled. "Of course." I looked at my children. "At one point," I began, "I thought failing you was my greatest fear." Sarah frowned. Mike stiffened. "But I was wrong," I continued. "My greatest fear was raising you well and still being disposable." Hale cleared his throat. "Mrs. Rose, I'm not finished," I said softly. The room stilled. "I carried you," I said to Sarah. "I starved for you. I forgave you when you forgot me." Sarah's eyes glistened. "Mama, please." "And you," I turned to Mike, "I protected you from the world, and now you brought it to my door." Mike's lips trembled. Hale leaned forward slightly. "This isn't productive." "No," I replied, meeting his eyes. I turned back to the papers. "I will sign." Relief rippled through the room too quickly. Sarah exhaled sharply. Mike sagged back in his chair. Hale smiled, victorious. "Excellent," he said. "Take your time." I lowered the pen. Then I paused. "Before I do," I added, "I want to understand something." Hale tilted his head. "Go on." "If something happens to me," I said, unexpectedly, "who benefits?" The temperature in the room dropped. Hale smiled thin. "That's an unusual question. Humor me," I whispered. Sarah laughed nervously. "Mama, why are you talking like that?" "Because people who rush paperwork," I replied, "often rush endings." Hale straightened. "Mrs. Rose, let's not complicate this." "Oh," I said gently, "it already is." I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and placed it on the table, face up. Then I pressed play. Mike's voice filled the room. "Hale already advanced us money." Sarah's breath caught. Hale froze. The recording continued. "Accidents happen." The pen slipped from Hale's fingers and rolled onto the floor. Silence. Not shock. Calculation. Hale recovered first. "This is illegal," he said calmly. "Recording without consent is admissible," I interrupted softly, "when it proves coercion." His eyes flicked to Mike, then to Sarah. "You told her?" she hissed. Mike didn't answer. The recording continued. "That's how evil survives," my voice said from the phone. "It dresses itself as administration." Hale stood abruptly. "We're done here." "No," I replied. "Now we're honest." I reached under the table and lifted the metal box, opened it, removed the camera, placed it gently beside the phone. Hale's face drained of color. "You installed surveillance on my home," I said. "You monitored my movements. You threatened my life." Sarah stood up shaking. "Mama, what is this?" "This," I said, "is the truth you were hoping I'd be too old to see." Hale took a step back. Kate's voice echoed in my mind. "Let it get close." I pressed one more button. Another recording played. Hale's voice. "If she doesn't sign willingly, there are other ways to make her unavailable." The room collapsed inward. Sarah screamed. "What have you done?" Hale lunged for the phone. Too late. The front door opened. Kate stepped in. Behind her, 2 uniformed officers. Hale turned slowly. For the first time, fear touched his face. "You planned carefully," I said. "You just forgot one thing." He stared at me. "Women like me," I continued, "are invisible until we decide not to be." The officer stepped forward. Sarah collapsed into the chair, sobbing. Mike didn't move. As Hale was led away, he looked back at me. "You'll regret this," he said quietly. I met his gaze. "No," I replied. "You will." When the door closed behind them, the house exhaled. Sarah fell to her knees. "Mama, I didn't know," she cried. I looked at her, then at Mike. "You knew enough," I said. I gathered the papers slowly, tore them in half, then again, and again. The sound echoed louder than any scream. "This house," I said calmly, "will never belong to fear." Silence. Kate placed a hand on my shoulder. "You did it," she whispered. I shook my head. "No," I replied. "I survived it." I walked to the window. Outside, life continued, but inside, everything had changed. And as I stood there, one thought settled quietly in my chest. This wasn't the end, because betrayal doesn't disappear when exposed. It waits, it reshapes itself, and sometimes it comes back wearing regret. If you're still listening, stay close, because what my children did after this was far more dangerous than what they did before. And before the next part, tell me, do you believe blood makes someone family, or does loyalty?
The house was quiet after they left. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, the kind that lingers after something has been broken and no one is sure what shape it will take when it settles. Sarah didn't leave that day. She sat on the floor where she had collapsed, knees pulled to her chest, crying without sound. The kind of crying that isn't meant to be heard, because hearing it would mean admitting guilt out loud. Mike stood by the door for a long time. He didn't apologize. Not yet. He looked like a man waiting for a verdict he already knew. I didn't speak to either of them. I went into my bedroom and closed the door. For the first time since all this began, I allowed my hands to shake. Not because Hale was gone, but because the danger wasn't. People always misunderstand moments like this. They think exposure ends the story, that once the villain is named, once the truth is spoken, everything returns to normal. But truth doesn't restore what betrayal destroys. It only reveals what remains. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at my reflection in the mirror. I looked older than I had a week ago. Not weaker, sharper, like something inside me had been stripped down to bone. A knock came at my door. Soft. "Mama," Sarah said from the other side. "Please." I didn't answer. Another knock, louder this time. "Mama, I didn't know he was that kind of man." I finally spoke. My voice surprised even me with how steady it sounded. "You knew enough to bring him into my life." Silence. Then a whisper. I was scared. I closed my eyes. "So was I said. "Every night you forgot me." The door creaked open slowly. Sarah stepped inside, her eyes swollen, her pride gone. She knelt in front of me like a child again. "I didn't want it to go this far," she said. We needed help. Mike's debt." "I know," I interrupted. "He told me." Her head snapped up. "He did?" "Yes," I replied. "And that's what frightens me most." She frowned. "Why?" "Because it means you're still lying." Her face crumpled. "You didn't do this to save your brother," I said quietly. "You did it because you believed I was already gone." She shook her head. "That's not true." "It is," I said gently. "The moment you stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a process." She sobbed then, loudly, uncontrolled. I let her. Sometimes guilt needs space to echo. After a while, she whispered, "What will you do to us?" The question settled between us like a blade. "To you?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "After everything, what will you do?" I looked at her for a long time. "I won't destroy you," I said. "Life will do that on its own." She flinched. "But I won't protect you anymore either," I added. Her eyes widened. "Mama, I spent years shielding you from consequences. That's how you learned to risk me." She fell silent. "I'm not reporting you," I continued. "Not today. Not yet." Hope flickered across her face. I leaned closer. "But understand this," I said. "Forgiveness is not amnesty." She swallowed. "You will leave this house tonight," I said. "Both of you." Her breath hitched. "Where will we go?" I stood up slowly. "That," I replied, "is no longer my problem." They left before sunset. No shouting, no begging. Just two people walking away from a home they thought they could inherit without love. Kate stayed with me that night. We drank tea in silence. "You did the hardest thing," she said eventually. "No," I replied. "I did the clearest." She nodded. "What happens now?" I stared into my cup. "Now," I said, "we wait." "For what?" "For the part people never talk about," I answered. "The aftermath." Kate frowned. "Rose, Hale is gone. The police have evidence." "Yes," I said. "But desperation doesn't vanish. It mutates." That night I slept, deeply, because exhaustion had finally won. I woke just before dawn to the sound of my phone buzzing. A message. From Mike. "I need to see you. Alone." I didn't reply. Another message followed. "Please, it's not safe." My chest tightened. A third message. "They're blaming us. Hale has people, and they think you ruined everything." I sat up slowly. Kate stirred. "What is it?" I showed her the phone. Her face darkened. "Rose, this is what I was afraid of." I stood and walked to the window. Outside, the street was quiet. Too quiet. I whispered, "He's still out there." Kate nodded. "And now, you're no longer invisible." I picked up my phone again. This time, I typed, "Come, but not alone." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then one final message came through. "You don't understand. They're watching you now." I looked at Kate and smiled, not with fear, but with understanding. "Oh," I said softly, "so am I. If you're still listening, don't leave yet."
Because the most dangerous phase is not betrayal. It's what comes after forgiveness is refused. And before the final part, tell me this. When someone betrays you and loses everything, do they accept the loss or do they try to take you down with them? This is where survival becomes a choice. The rain started just before Mike arrived. Not heavy, not dramatic. Just enough to blur the streetlights and make every shadow look like it had intentions. Kate insisted on standing near the door, not in front of it, to the side. She had always understood danger the way some people understand weather. You don't challenge it, you position yourself around it. When the knock came, it wasn't confident. It was rushed. I opened the door. Mike looked smaller than I remembered. His jacket hung loose on his shoulders. His eyes darted behind him before he stepped inside. He smelled like fear and wet concrete. You shouldn't have come, Kate said coldly. I didn't have a choice, he replied. I closed the door gently. That gentleness unsettled him more than shouting would have. They're panicking, he said immediately. Hale didn't act alone. There were investors, people who expected things to resolve quietly. And now, I asked. Now they're exposed, and they think you are the reason. I walked past him and sat down. Kate remained standing. Sit, I told Mike. He didn't. I'm not staying long, he said. I just needed to warn you. Warn me of what? I asked. He hesitated. Of forgiveness, he said finally. Kate laughed once, sharp. That's a new threat. Mike looked at me. They think if you soften, if you retract statements, hesitate, fall ill, everything resets. My hand stilled. Fall ill, I repeated. He nodded. They're waiting, watching, for weakness. I leaned back in my chair. And you? I asked. What are you waiting for? His face collapsed. I want you to forgive us, he said, publicly, quietly, just enough to calm them down. The room went still. Kate's voice was low. You're asking her to lie down so they don't step harder. Mike ignored her. His eyes were locked on mine. They said if you don't, he whispered, they'll make an example. I studied him. Not the son I raised. The man he had chosen to become. Who is they? I asked. He shook his head. You don't want to know. I smiled then. A small smile. That's where you're wrong, I said. I already do. I stood, walked to the cabinet, pulled out a folder. Thick, heavy. Placed it on the table between us. Mike stared at it. What's that? Insurance, I replied. Kate noted. Copies, backups, names. Mike's breath quickened. You told me to come alone. I did, I said. And you came. What does that mean? It means, I said, you're about to choose who you really are. I opened the folder. Inside, photographs, transactions, timelines. Not just Hale, others. Layers beneath him. The kind of web that doesn't survive daylight. Mike stepped back. How did you get this? I've been underestimated my entire life, I said. It made me observant. And patient, Kate added. Mike ran a hand through his hair. This will destroy people. Yes, I said. That's what truth does when it's late. He looked at me desperately. Please, if you release this, they'll retaliate. I closed the folder. Retaliation is only effective, I said, when the target is isolated. I met his eyes. I am not. Silence stretched. Then Mike whispered, What will you do for me? I considered him carefully. Nothing, I said. His face twisted in confusion. I want you to leave, I continued, and never speak for me again. Not to them. Not to your sister. Not to yourself. And if I don't, he asked. I looked at Kate. She answered for me. Then you become evidence. Mike's shoulders sagged. He nodded once. I understand, he said. At the door, he paused. They'll come after you, he said quietly. Not with threats, with kindness, apologies, offers. I smiled. Then they still don't understand me, I replied. After he left, Kate locked the door. Are you afraid? She asked. I thought about it. Then I shook my head. No, I'm finished being. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. A message appeared. We can fix this. Let's talk. I didn't reply. Another message. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I typed slowly. You mistook my silence for permission. Then I turned the phone off. I walked back to the window. Rain washed the street clean. They'll escalate, Kate said. Yes, I replied, but not forever. She looked at me. How do you know? Because people who rely on fear, I said, collapse when it stops working. I placed the folder back into the cabinet, locked it, and for the first time I felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Not anger, not grief. Control. If you're still listening, this is where most stories end. But survival doesn't end with escape. It demands transformation. And in the final part, you'll see what happens when a woman they tried to erase decides to be seen. This is not about revenge. It's about reckoning. The first thing I did was nothing. No statements, no interviews, no explanations. That silence unsettled them more than any threat ever could. Days passed, then weeks. People reached out, not with concern, but with curiosity. Some with apologies carefully rehearsed. Others with offers disguised as kindness. Invitations, mediation, closure. I declined all of it. Because closure, I had learned, is something people ask for when they are afraid of what remains open. Kate stayed close. You've become a rumor, she told me one morning. People don't know what you'll do, and that frightens them. I smiled. Good. One afternoon, I walked back into a place I hadn't visited in years, the community hall. It smelled of dust and old announcements. Folding chairs lined the room, uneven, waiting for people who didn't yet know they would be called. I asked for permission to speak. They gave it quickly. People always do when they think age has softened them. The room filled slowly. Familiar faces, distant ones. People who had watched my life from the sidelines and assumed it was quiet because it was small. I stood at the front. No notes, no dramatics, just my voice. I am not here to accuse, I began. And I am not here to forgive. The room stilled. I am here because silence almost killed me. A murmur passed through the crowd. For years, I continued. I was treated as a background figure in my own life. Useful, predictable, disposable. Eyes lowered. I was told to rest, to trust, to sign. A few people shifted in their seats. I was told I was loved, I said, while decisions were made as if I was already gone. No one interrupted. I survived, I went on. Not because I fought, but because I paid attention. I looked around the room. If you are caring for someone older, listen to them. Not politely, not patiently. Listen as if their future still matters. Silence pressed down hard now. And if you are older, I added, my voice steady, do not confuse kindness with obedience.
I stepped back. That was all. No names, no details. I didn't need them. The reckoning didn't come as an explosion. It came as a shift. Conversations stopped when I entered rooms. Contracts were reviewed more carefully. People hesitated before assuming consent from those they once overlooked. Quiet changes. Permanent ones. Sarah reached out once. A long message, apologies, tears wrapped in words. I didn't respond. Not because I hated her, but because some lessons cannot be softened without being undone. Mike never contacted me again. That too was a choice. One evening, as the sun lowered itself gently into the horizon, Kate and I sat on the porch. You won, she said. I shook my head. No, I replied. I arrived. She smiled. What will you do now? I thought about the woman I had been and the woman I had become. I will live, I said, out loud. The world did not applaud. It adjusted. And that, I learned, is the truest form of power. If you've listened this far, remember this. You do not disappear because you age. You disappear because others benefit from your silence. And the moment you refuse it, everything changes. This is not the end of my story. It's the point where it finally became mine. Thank you for staying. Like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications if you haven't already.